Welcome to Hoyt's Bowhunting Whitetails. On today's episode, I'm going to make jerky out of part of the doe that my brother-in-law shot a couple of days ago. So I'm going to walk you through this process. I'll keep it short and sweet. I'll post a link to the recipe in the description, and that way I don't have to run through all the ingredients and bog this down. But this is not a recipe that I created. This is one that I found online. It's called Chipotle Venison Jerky. It's a 2-day process. First day, get all the, get the meat prepared, get the marinade prepared, put it into containers and put it in the refrigerator and let it marinate for at least 24 hours is their recommendation. So I'm not going to be actually drying this down or smoking it, in my case on the Traeger grill, until tomorrow. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'll take you through it quick, but this is a recipe that we really like. It's one that, I try to do at least one batch of jerky every year. Hoyt's Bowhunting Whitetails is brought to you by Redneck Blinds, Code of Silence Apparel, Hunt Stand Pro Whitetail App, Whitetail Institute, Research Equals Results, B3 Releases, XO Broadheads, Exact Sights, Muddy Outdoors Tree Stands, Stealth Cam Trail Cameras, and Hoyt. I'm going to start with a hindquarter and work that down into small 1/4 inch thick strips. So all I'm doing here is separating out the muscles into their separate pieces so that I can slice those up. You always want to clean the meat off really well. You don't want to leave any of what they call the silver skin on the outside of the meat, or any of the tissues, connective tissues, anything that, even fat, that could potentially taint the meat. So you get off a really nice looking chunk of meat like this, and I'll clean that up a little bit more, but then I'll start slicing that down into strips that I can make into jerky. I've got the first hindquarter cut up and put into this plastic container to put into the refrigerator. I first ground up or mixed up one batch of marinade. I've got to mix up one more to pour over the top, and then you work it into the meat with your hands, and then you can put it in the refrigerator and marinate it. I've got enough room probably in this Tupperware for, gosh, maybe for the whole second hindquarter. You've seen how I reduced that hindquarter down to strips of meat, and I'm sure there's more efficient ways to do it. I've done probably half a dozen, and my method is probably not the absolute best, but in the end I end up with a lot of nice looking meat. I think the key, like I mentioned earlier, is anything that's white, you got to get rid of it. Okay, so let's go look at creating the marinade. got the second batch of marinade mixed in with the meat. I'm gonna cut up the other hind quarter and put this into the same container, and then pour one more batch of marinade over the top of that and mix it in really well. Put it in the refrigerator. So I'm not gonna show you that whole process of cutting up the other quarter, the other hind quarter. You've seen that, but I will show you what it looks like when I'm all done right before I put it into the fridge. So now I just have to let this sit for about 24 hours, roughly, maybe a little bit more. It's important to get both sides of each strip of jerky covered with the marinade so the flavor can work its way into the meat. So you gotta squish it around quite a bit until you get everything coated. So I'm gonna be back again very soon to put this on the grill and show you the final product. It's day 2 of preparing the chipotle venison jerky. And this is where my method takes a little bit of a fork in the road compared to the recipe. Recipe calls for dehydrating until it's just a little bit, shows the first signs of cracking when you bend it. So it's got just a small amount of moisture left in it. I don't have a dehydrator. In the past I've used my grill, and I'll put it on the smoke mode, and it takes a few hours to go through a batch that way. But today it's a little bit raw outside, the wind is a little bit cold, and I don't feel like waiting long enough to smoke the jerky on the grill. So I'm just going to go ahead and cook it. I'll just run the grill at 300 degrees. I'm not going to cook it too hot, maybe 350. And then I'm only going to cook what I think we can eat in about a week's time, because that's roughly how long we can keep it in the refrigerator after cooking it. The rest of it I'm going to go ahead and freeze and pull out and cook later. So this is still very, very good. I mean, it's not exactly jerky. You would need a dehydrator, and ideally you'd need some kind of a food storage machine where you can vacuum seal the jerky. That's the best results, from everybody that I've talked to that does it themselves. But my method works really good for making awesome tasting venison. You just have to cook it a little bit more often. So that's the plan for today. It's probably going to take, I figure I've got about 25 pounds here. And that's not all meat, some of it's the marinade. But it'll probably take me the better part of the afternoon to get this completely cooked up and bagged up and put away. But it's worth it. I mean, this is really, really good. If you get a chance to try this recipe, I think you'll really enjoy it. So this is the way that I prefer to eat it. I don't dry it down to make the jerky, like I said. It is so good like this. You have to make it in smaller batches because now you're really just cooking the venison. You're not drying it. So you have to be really careful too that you don't overcook it. Like any kind of venison, it's always going to taste better if it's on the rare side. Boy, this wind is really kicking up. But this is the way to go. Man, that's so good. I bet I eat at least the first pound that comes off every batch. Right here, standing at the grill, it is so good. So that's going to be it for this episode. I'm fired up now. I'm inspired with a couple of days left of the season to shoot another doe or two to make more of this. I'll give it a try. I think you'll really like it. I appreciate you joining me. I'll see you right back here again soon for the next episode of Hoyt's Bowhunting Whitetails. And remember to always dream big.